Okay, B'ezrat Hashem, today we're starting a new sefer. We're starting the Mesilat Yesharim. Mesilat Yesharim was written by the Ramchal, Rav Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, and is a sefer that organizes Avodat Hashem into different midot, and he shows the progression, how we accomplish one midah, move on to the next step, and the next step, and the next step. And it's organized in a brilliant fashion. B'ezrat Hashem, as we go through this, we'll also internalize these ideas and really develop in a very real way. B'ezrat Hashem. Now he begins with Hakdama.
How old was the book?
Good question. I think it was the 15 or 1600s, I believe. Yeah. And he wrote this, and it's a beautiful sefer.
And it's still current.
Extremely. We'll see. So he starts with an introduction, which we're going to just begin today. But this introduction happens to be a lot of very important messages in general about the study of Musar. We'll see. And it's kedai to go through. So B'ezrat Hashem, let's get started. Ramchal tells us as follows. Amar Mechaber, the author, Ramchal tells us as follows. Hachibur hazeh lo chibartiv lelamed lebnei adam et asher lo yadau. This book I have not written to teach people things that they don't know. Rather, I have written this to remind them of things that they know. Things that are publicized by them already in a significant way. You won't find the majority of my words only things that most people know. And they don't have doubt in these things at all. Based on the how much it's well known, and corresponding to the truth being revealed to everyone, so too the forgetfulness about these and the not focusing on these things is also very common. So he says there's a very simple idea which has tremendous ramifications, which is very often the things in life that are the most obvious, or the things in the life that you'd assume are the most readily available, most known, they're also things that we don't necessarily focus on. They're also things that we don't necessarily develop. That's really the key that he's going to bring out as we go through this introduction. So he's going to show is in Avodat Hashem, it's a similar thing. Very often there's things that we assume we understand deeply because we're used to them. They're publicized. Every kid knows these things. But we never develop them because of that, exactly because of that. So he says in my sefer, you're not going to find things in my sefer that you wouldn't know before. But the point is to develop, that's the key. Just knowing something doesn't mean that you're developing in that area. Okay, and therefore, the benefit of this sefer does not occur if you read it one time. Because if you read it one time, you might not find chidushim, novel ideas, that you didn't know before. Elamat, me a little bit. The benefit is accrued, it's received when we review these ideas. Because it will remind us of things that we naturally forget, things that perhaps we naturally lose. And then we'll place in our hearts the obligation that is forgotten from us, the obligation that we might naturally forget in this world. If you have to go, you go. I don't want to hold you on the other. Now look, he says something fascinating. So it's such a practical idea happens to be. What? V'tir'eh. He says like this, look. Yosef, you're going to appreciate this. You love Musar. Musar. Yeah, that's right. He says like this, look. Look around the world, the goings-on of the world. Look at what's going on in the world. Most people that have sharp intellect, intelligent people, yeah? People with sharp intelligence. They place their focus in, as we'll explain in a moment, the particular avenues of wisdom that appeals to them. That's what we're about to show. Different people have different types of chokhmot, as we're about to explain, and people with intelligence, they want to apply that intelligence to develop, to understand something, to become a master of something. Each person based on the inclination of his type of intelligence. You look around, you find this idea. Some people, they like to analyze and understand nature. Scientists who appreciate nature, so then they try to understand, well, how do we categorize this and how do we understand that? And then a person becomes a scientist, a physicist, etc. And other people, other people place all of their focus on tchuna. Tchuna is astronomy. That's how they explain it over here. Very interesting. Right? People that are they're very interested in how the stars work and the patterns and the connections. So then they'll develop astronomy. Beautiful. Ula handasa. Handasa is geometry. People that appreciate mathematics, so they'll focus on geometry. Achirim limlachot. Other people who appreciate the advancements of technology, they'll focus on technology and the developments of technology. Beautiful. But other people, they draw closer to holier pursuits. Not there's anything wrong with what we just said, which is natural. That's what he's saying. Depending on your natural inclination, if you're an intelligent person, you'll want to apply that intelligence to develop understanding of different subjects. And others, he says, they approach closer to the holy items, to holy things. Dahainu, for example, meaning to say, Limura Torah Ktosha, studying the Torah. They use their intelligence, their God-given intelligence, to study Torah. Now there's different aspects of Torah, right, Yosef? We know about this. Some people love the cross-analysis of halachot. Yom Tov. Midrashim, some people, they'll apply themselves in midrashim, like more stories, things of that nature.
They don't say somebody like only money?
Well, money, yeah, the guys that maybe,
only
it's
money.
True.
The thing, how I make money, doesn't matter what. It's
true. So we're talking about people that have intelligence and want to actualize those intelligence. You're right. Some people that have ta'avot and just want to make money, that's a different story. You're right, that's not necessarily a negative thing either. But we're talking about people who have intelligence and they want to apply their intelligence into where their nitiyah is, their nature is, right? Mehem midrashim, so again, some of them apply themselves in midrashim, drashot. Mehem piskei adinim, some of them in terms of the psak halacha. What is the outcome in halacha? And we're going to finish off in 1 minute, but he says, however, but there are very few people that establish times, iyun v'limud, set times for analysis and study, al inyanei shlemut avodah, on the matters of the complete service of Hashem. There's very few people that focus in on the complete service of Hashem. This is a specific area of study. You want to call it musar, you want to call it hashkafa, call it whatever you want. Ramchal calls it shlemut avodah, or in other words, he's going to call it also chasidut. We're going to get to that in a minute. Al ahava, for example, it says loving Hashem, avat Hashem. But what does it mean to love Hashem? What does it really mean? How do we develop that? Ala yir'ah, awe of Hashem. Ala dveikut, connection with Hashem. Val kol shar chelkei chasidut. And all the other elements or parts of what we know is called chasidut. Now it's very important here. He's going to go on to say, we'll see how far we could get today, but he's going to go on to say, very often in our lingo, the language we use, we confuse ideas. So if I would ask you, what is chasidut? So you might say, a chasid is the guy who walks around with the curly peyot, and that is what a certain group of people call themselves. I mean, not when the Sfarim, Ramchal and the Gemara, we're talking about it's levels in Avodat Hashem. We're talking about developed levels in Avodat Hashem. And really, how the Ramchal is going to call it, it's not to say those people are not Hasidim in the real sense, but it's a different terminology, it's a different definition. When he's talking about Chasidut or Chasidim, it means people that develop in these particular avenues of Avat Hashem, Yirat Hashem, Dveikut Hashem, all of these things, which are crucial, as he calls, for Shlemut Avodah. That's what he calls Chasidut. Now, he says like this, what's the pshat? He says, why is it that people don't engage in this? What's the pshat? Why is it that people are not studying? It's very interesting. He's talking, let's say, 400 years ago, something like that. What is the pshat that people are not studying this information? Right? Meaning they're studying other things. They learn Gemara, they learn Mishnah, they learn Halacha. But in terms of what he's calling Shleimuta Avodah, people don't study. So why? He says something fascinating. It's not because these matters are not the main points, they're not important to them. Because if you ask them, if you ask somebody, is Avat Hashem important? He'll say, of course, that's an ikar, that's a principle, that's a very important thing. And he says, everyone knows that nobody could really be a chacham who doesn't clarify these topics. The reason people don't focus on them, it's because of how publicly known these matters are and how simple these ideas are to people. They don't feel the need then to invest a lot of time in these things. They say, I already understand that. I know Ahavat Hashem, it's basic. Therefore, they don't develop these things, and then they're left undeveloped. He says something very harsh here, but he says, what ends up happening is, these Svarim are only studied, it's only studied by people that are not so smart, people that are not so intelligent. Because people that are not so intelligent figure, all right, if I can't understand Gemara, I can't understand Halacha, I'll learn Musar. That's what ends up happening. I'll learn Shleimuta Avodah. That's what ends up happening. That others see them, that's all they're learning all day. These people that are not so intelligent. But what ends up happening is, the common custom in the world is, if you see somebody engaged in these studies in Chassidut, what ends up happening is you can't hold back from suspecting that he's not so intelligent. So the Ramchal says, unfortunately, what ends up happening is, if the sharp people aren't studying it, the smart people aren't, and then the less intelligent people are, so when you see people learning these limudim, you automatically assume they're not so intelligent. Now, we're going to have to stop here because I have to go, but what he's going to go on to explain tomorrow is how terrible that is, because the outcome of this is very negative. If the intelligent people are not studying these very important things, and it's only by those that are not so intelligent, the outcome is very negative. We'll pick up, God willing, with that tomorrow.
Some people gotta walk long hours.